7th, 2017. The first agenda item is signing of the warrant.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we approve the warrant.
I will second that, please.
I'll also vote in favor. That's unanimous. We have, I think, 4 meeting minutes. The first set of meeting minutes is minutes of executive session for July 10th.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we approve those in exec and discuss those in exec.
Okay.
I would second that.
Still may be changes. Then there's the regular meeting of the 24th.
Okay. Is that a motion, Bill?
I'll move that we approve the meeting minutes of July 24th.
I would second that.
And I'm going to abstain. That's 2 in favor, 1 abstention. Is anyone here for invitation to speak that is not on the agenda? Mr. Mangusa?
Hi.
Welcome.
Just to introduce myself, my name is Steve Manguso. I grew up in Milford. I taught in the Milford school system for 35 years, and I was a coach in Milford for 38 years. And I was also a member of the Youth Commission. I was the longest standing member. I would say 16 years. I was on before it officially became the Youth Commission. I think it was Friends of the Milford Armory or Milford Youth Center. Anyway, the reason I'm here is at the June meeting when the Youth Commission took applications for 2 people that stepped down, which was Mike Walsh and Kristen Kibbe. We recommended Ron Taylor and Lisa White, which was pretty standard, and that's how it was supposed to go. That's not how it went. The Board of Selectmen did appoint Ron Taylor, did appoint Lisa White, and appointed Darlene DeLude to my spot. Okay, I didn't want to step down. There was no conversation. There was no heads up. I mean, if it was a mistake, it could have been rectified. Mr. Walsh tried to rectify that, not last meeting, but the meeting before. So I just have some questions. I don't know what message is trying to be sent here. I don't know if it's we don't want anyone on these boards that doesn't agree with us. We don't want anyone serving on a board that didn't vote for us. I'm not understanding this, and it was a pretty, I think most people would agree there was no mention of my name, that it was kind of a backdoor move. I don't know, maybe tonight you're going to answer this question. Is there some type of evaluation system that you used? I'd like to know what the evaluation system was. I'd like to know who else. Are some people evaluating and some people aren't? What is the tool that you're using? I haven't heard anything on this. And also, I just think it was a slap in the face to the Youth Center board. Kind of, we can't trust you to take a look at these resumes and make a recommendation and put people in there. I'm so proud every time I live in town, obviously, and every time I drive by that building, a building that when I was growing up here, we couldn't get in gymnasiums. We didn't have a gym. Milford High had a 50-foot John C. Lynch gymnasium, and we practiced in there. Okay, this was Jay D'Antonio's dream. I coached youth sports with Jay, and I remember him bringing this up. Our kids played T-ball and farm league together. He got the ball rolling on this. He went to Mrs. Parenti, and she purchased the building for $1. The collaboration has just been unbelievable. Unbelievable. And unfortunately, I mean, with this latest move, I don't see where Mr. Kincaid and Mr. Buckley have been on board with this. I know Mr. Buckley, when the town was thinking of purchasing the building, you stopped by my house. I think it's the last long conversation that we've had. And you implored me not to get involved with this. You gave me your reasons. Okay, I understood. It was a civil conversation. I thought we needed the recreational space and the 2:30 to 6:30 program. And that's all it's been. So any disagreements that we've had, they've been over a youth center. Okay, and I'm so proud of the collaboration, again, that we've had in Milford with citizens, with businesses, and the people that have stood up and fought for this place. I'd like to thank my commission members. Over the years, there's 16 years, there's been a lot of different people. Some of these people were attacked by bloggers, people using anonymous names and attacking these people who were volunteering their time, okay, and just trying to make progress with a youth center. There were some nasty things said about their families, about their kids. Okay, we got through that. Okay, and I just appreciate all their hard work. Mr. Murray, Mr. DiBartolomeus, Mr. Fernandez, all their hard work, this couldn't have been done. All the directors, from Artie Moran to Jimmy Sank to Sidney DeJesus to Jen, Katie, and Christine. And, my friend Paul Seaver, who got me involved, he was Jay's good friend. He got me involved. And I saw his passion, okay? I saw all the hard work he put into it. There was no monetary gain. This was a youth center. And, don't forget that youth center had to raise utilities for a number of years. Okay, thank God for the United Way, and the town has pitched in big time as of, at this point, but it wasn't always like that. I saw his courage. I mean, Jay and Paul gone way too soon. I remember being in this room that last year when he had ALS and he could barely speak. And he should have been off on some island, and he was here fighting those battles. So I am here because I feel disrespected. I was disrespected. But I'm more concerned with the youth center and what's going to happen. Okay? And I don't know. This appears to be a pattern. This happened to Phyllis Ahern. This happened to another gentleman on the zoning board that I don't know if he was, I think he was reassigned. I don't know exactly where. But this is something that voters should be watching for. That's it. I'd like to thank Mr. Buckley for your service. Not very pleased with the decision you've made. And Will and Mr. Walsh, with your family situations, I wish you nothing but the best. And I am so proud of that youth center, and we'll continue to support it. And in a few minutes, Mr. Walsh is going to bring that up again. So if you've had second thoughts about it, that could be rectified right here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Manguso.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here for invitation to speak? Not hearing that. Public hearings and scheduled appointments. The first one is a joint meeting of the Milford School Committee and the Board of Selectmen regarding a BVT appointment. Joe, you and your committee want to come up?
This Mrs. Group?
Everybody?
I think so, yeah. Another member had another commitment today.
Just more so for not only the people that are in the public seating here, but also for those watching. I just want to read, as confirmed by the Election Council at the State House, the Board of Selectmen are required, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 10, to vote to place this office on the ballot for the November 6, 2018 state election, as this position is for an unexpired term. The board vote must occur before the town clerk can make nomination papers available for each office. In addition, the board must file with the town clerk notice of an election for the office not less than 15 days before the last day to submit nomination papers to the registrars of voters for certification before the election. Further, regarding the filling of the position of the BVT School District Committee, should the board fill this position on August 7, 2017, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 11, the individual so appointed will serve on the school committee only until December 31st, 2018. This is a memo from our town administrator, Richard Villani, to the Board of Selectmen, dated July 24th. I received a letter dated June 27, 2017, from Dr. Michael F. Fitzpatrick, District Clerk of the Blackstone Valley Vocational Regional School District, informing me they have a vacancy on the Blackstone Valley Regional Vocational School District Committee due to the resignation of Arthur E. Moran, Jr. In conferring with Town Council, the process to fill this vacancy is governed by Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 11, which provides in pertinent part, if there is a vacancy in a board consisting of 2 or more members, the remaining members shall give written notice thereof within 1 month of said vacancy to the selectmen, who, with the remaining members of such board, shall, after 1 week's notice, fill such vacancy by roll call vote. He recommends, obviously, that announcement was made. We meet here today with the Milford School Committee. A lot of people weren't aware that the way the legislation is on the regional school district in your district, it's more of a, actually, even though it's an independent elected, it's a liaison of the Milford School Committee and the Board of Selectmen. So with that, we received a number of applicants. They are Anthony Chinapi of 63 Godfrey Lane, Brian T. Cole of Edgewood Drive, Michael E. Haney, John Morty, and Michael Visconti of Muriel Lane. And we also received correspondence from Paul Braza, though he wasn't on our list. It came in after the deadline. I said earlier I would start with anybody on this board before we introduce the school committee, if there's any comments.
Yep.
If there's anything beyond comments, I can certainly have Joe introduce himself and his committee members and then turn it back to the Board of Selectmen.
Mr. Chairman, looking at the list, I'd like to make a nomination for Anthony Chinapi. He's a member who's in good standing with this community. He's a graduate of Milford High. He's a longstanding teacher at the Milford school system. He was also on our finance committee, so he understands municipal finance, which is a role that's critical to school committees and vocational school districts. And I'd like to put his name in nomination as one of the candidates who submitted his paperwork and met that deadline.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay, I'll second that for discussion, because this is where we have to at least come up with the format. We can take, obviously, a vote on each one individually, or we can submit names in for nomination. Is there a preference, or do we want to just, there's a nomination, there's a second, we can call for the vote and go on from there?
I think we should, at least, since there's a nomination and a second, we ought to vote and take any one thereafter.
Okay. Are you good with that, Mike? Mm-hmm. Okay.
This point of order, shouldn't there be a discussion before the vote?
Well, there's a discussion. Since a motion was made, we obviously have to discuss it now. So I guess I should have done the introductions first, but a motion was made. I seconded for discussion. Is there any further discussion on this candidate prior to taking a vote?
So, not specific to this candidate, but just a general statement, if that's okay. One quick comment. I will say I was very impressed with the candidate pool. We had some strong candidates step forward, and I would be honored to serve with any of these candidates on our committee, let alone appoint someone to another committee. But in looking at the applicants, there's one candidate in particular that really stood out in my mind, and we can certainly get into the name
Yeah,
later
just don't
on.
bring, if it's someone else, don't bring up his name
Yeah,
yet.
no,
if you
I'm
don't.
not
Okay,
going to do
thank you,
that.
Joe.
So, and the only thing I'll add there is that this candidate did submit the paperwork late, and they submitted the paperwork late because of my advice, the guidance that I gave him. So, at the time when he reached out and expressed interest in the position, I wasn't aware of the August 2nd deadline. I was under the impression that these people would actually have up until tonight's meeting to come forward and be considered. So. When I had the conversation with him, I told him you'll be fine if you turn the paperwork in by Friday. You turn the paperwork in by Friday. Unfortunately, it was late, but it's just full transparency. I want everyone to be aware. The only reason why he waited till Friday was because I told him that'd be okay.
Okay. Is there any other further discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, that's unfortunate. I appreciate you, Joe, saying that because, you know, we've worked hard to make sure we communicate with your committee, to give the notices, to provide it in the newspaper, to provide public notice. I noticed the Milford Daily News even picked it up in a story for which you contributed in that article, and so I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking responsibility for that. The struggle I get into is when we get a list and there's a deadline. You know, I've been criticized here by appointing somebody from within the talent bank. Wasn't necessarily the recommendation from others within Town Hall, but I've been criticized for not following the process as the appointing authority, not appointing somebody whose name was on the list. So, you know, I have to speak to those people who have met the requirements, regardless of you know, the direction you gave them, and whether this is attention to detail, I don't know what it is, but the fact of the matter is there are people that worked hard, communicated with Rick or communicated with the superintendent, found out what the deadlines were, met the obligations. I don't know what to say to them. In addition, there was information that was provided that allowed us to communicate with different candidates after the deadline and prior to the last submission, and where commitments can be made and say, hey, are you sure you're interested in this? What's your level of interest? The motion that I made for the individual is in great standing in this community. He's been known to school committees for many years, been a long supporter of education, and probably one of the experts that I would look to when you look at his finance background and also his FinCom background. His understanding of mass municipal laws as it relates to the financing of school department budgets. So I'm not hesitant at all, and I appreciate you saying that, Joe. I'm not hesitant at all putting Tony Chinapi's name in nomination. And for those people, I just don't want to have to go back and explain, you know, why somebody might have been nominated who didn't make it for whatever reason to the deadlines that we posted in the newspaper. So I appreciate you being candid about that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Jen?
I think one of the challenges that I'm having is someone who's expected to be part of this vote is, kind of to your point, Bill, we got a list. And so some people shared a lot of information that was forwarded to us, a resume and a lot of background, and other people, I just received a letter that said I'm interested in this position. So I don't have a lot to go on. So I hear you're endorsing a person for very good reason. But I guess I feel a little bit at a loss to know if there are any others who may have similar credentials, because those weren't shared with us. So whether it's, I don't know if it's too late to rectify that and we put this vote off a little while so at least each candidate has a chance to share. Because I checked the posting and the posting really didn't say that they had to provide a resume or...
No, just had a letter of interest, yeah.
Letter of interest, yeah.
Well, Jen, to be honest with you, I think, if you don't mind me interjecting, I think out of the, 8 of us that are in the room, whatever a majority of the 8 say is how it's going to be. So I think there is a motion and a second on the table. I think that vote's going to have to be taken unless a motion is rescinded, which I'm not expecting. But after that, we can go in any direction that the majority of this board, because everyone's vote is equal. So you may have just made a valid point to a lot of your colleagues. So I'm not sure, and then we can go from there. But
You know, and frankly, as a matter of law, right, the committees together can appoint Donald Trump. I mean, doesn't have to be present, doesn't have to have submitted
Whoever gets 5 votes is the person.
is the person. I just want to pay the respect to the individuals who have great credentials and met the requirements of the posting and the timeline.
Okay. So, any more discussion, John?
Yeah, just a little bit for further discussion. I share Jen's concerns. Fortunately for me, I know 4 of the 5 candidates fairly well, and casually know the 5th one if I've got the numbers right. But so I know the majority of them, and I'm comfortable making a vote tonight. But I share the concerns for anybody here that doesn't know more about them. We didn't ask, at least to my knowledge, for a full resume or
I don't believe so.
detailed explanation on your letter of interest or your statement of interest. So. Again, personally, I'm comfortable, but if anyone else in the room isn't comfortable, that makes me not comfortable making this vote tonight. So I'd look for, input from.
I think we
Okay.
have a requirement to a timeline.
Yeah, well, we do have to make sure that we're doing everything within the time period. Jerry's not here, but that legislation did say that decisions have to be made. So I'm not sure that we have to do it tonight. But again, I just want to say that there's a motion and a second on the floor. So if there's no further discussion, that vote, and your motion stands, Bill?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's a first and a second. It has to be done by roll call vote. So, I don't know. Bill?
I vote aye.
Mike?
No.
Joe?
No.
Nope.
John?
Abstain.
Okay. Jim?
No.
Jen? Okay.
Jim.
Yep, nope, Jim. I got him.
So we have.
Gene, did you get
How many abstentions?
1 abstention?
John abstains.
Yes.
Okay. Jen, no.
Yep. Joe, no. Joey, no. Mike, no. I'm a yay. And now the floor is open to either other nominations, or if Jen wants to make a motion, or John on their comments, we can go from there.
So,
Sorry to be clumsy, but these things always are. When we did the
No,
Joint Housing
absolutely.
Authority, they're just, you
Yeah.
just kind of got to bear through it.
and I think this has been a learning process for all of us, right? This is the first time we've had a situation where we have to make this type of appointment.
Yeah.
And I think if we're in this position again, the next time around, I think we've all learned something from this, and we may change the process. From my perspective, I do think we should have given candidates a little bit more time, especially this time of year in the summer. We only gave people 8 days to really step forward.
But Joe, that's what the law required.
Just 8 days?
1 week.
Okay.
So that's what was in the memo from Jerry and from Rick. So you have 1 week once the letter of resignation is, then within a month you have to make the appointment. So the legislature doesn't give us a whole lot of time, unfortunately.
All right. So at this point then, and then we have a month to make a decision?
A month from the point of, is that what it was, Rick? Do you remember?
If you did not, if the school committee did not send notice to the selectmen that you were looking to appoint someone, they could have done it on their own, as I understand the legislation.
Right, and because it's, obviously, we want it to be inclusive.
Right. Yeah.
So again, unfortunately, it's a public meeting, you don't have any real time to confer, but I just think that, or we can take a minute or two if you want, but, I don't know if Jen and John made certain points, or if they want to make those points again, but the floor is open, so we can either nominate someone, or we can put it off, but I don't think we have a lot of time.
Yeah.
It would have to be at the, no later than the next meeting. John?
Yeah, I just want to say that my abstention was in no way any reflection on the candidate. It was about the things that we
Process.
discussed tonight. I would motion to postpone this appointment until more information is submitted by the candidates in whatever format your board wants to move forward with, whether it's letters, personal interviews, something. That would be my motion right now.
Is there a second?
I would second that.
Okay, Jen seconds that. Just for discussion, I certainly don't have a problem. We just have to make sure that we're not reposting this. We're reaching out to the current applicant pool,
Right.
correct? Because it's very important that we're all on the same page here. And then reaching out for them, asking for maybe a detailed resume or more, or we can come up with that. Joe, if you and I want to work together on it just in the next couple days, or if Kevin and Rick want to work on it, however you guys want to do it, I'm fine with. I don't think we're asking for more information is a negative. Mike, do you have an issue with that?
No.
Okay.
So
Joe?
I just want to make sure when you refer to the current candidate pool, that we are including Paul Brazza in that candidate pool.
Well, I certainly I will speak for myself. I don't have a problem with that. He submitted his name, and quite honestly, he doesn't have to be on the list to get 5 votes. So again, if someone made a motion for Donald Trump and 5 votes got, then he'd be the newest member of the Blackstone Valley Vocational School. So we don't want that, but I think that's what it comes down to. I think, not putting your words in your
No,
mouth, but
he's got a resume.
Yep, and that's where it goes from there.
Should we set a date for them to have their information in by?
Yeah, because we would have to vote on it the next, because we could put you on the agenda for what, the 21st? And
We can reach
that's
out to
what
the
late-
candidates and get more detail if it's required. So why don't you and Joe get together, and let's just make sure we're all in agreement on the dates so that different candidates don't have a different understanding of the dates. And we can, because some provided it, I guess is my point.
Right, some had resumes,
So
some did not.
some you don't need additional information on, it looks like, and if you two agree on who that is, Rick can reach
Do you,
out to
do you want me to
the
call you
few
tomorrow?
candidates.
And we'll chat tomorrow morning, or, and just so we're on the same page? But I think what would we want, a detailed resume?
Yeah, I think we'd want resumes from each of them, and to your point, many of them have already done that, have already taken that step, so, but we still have to vote on this, right?
Yeah, there's a motion and a second on the floor, so we can either vote that up or down, and then go from there, or, however that vote turns out, but we're not voting on a candidate on this motion, so it doesn't have to be a roll call vote, so I guess all those in favor of delaying the process and asking for additional information from the applicants, from the current pool of applicants.
Until August 21st.
To the August 21st meeting, we can put that on the agenda, or do we want to have a meeting prior to?
I'm not sure about a meeting prior to, but I don't know if you want to extend it right to August 21st, maybe, the Friday before, or...
Well, you work with them. They've
I'm
offered.
just saying, that's our next meeting, right?
That's the next meeting, correct.
They've offered additional information, left their phone numbers. If anybody wanted to reach out, they could have, but I guess my point is now we can reach out and get information. Okay.
All those in favor? 7 in favor? Oh, you
Yeah, I
opposed?
did.
Oh, you
I
were, I'm
voted
sorry,
in
okay.
favor. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Unanimous.
Eight.
Yep.
Unanimous.
All right, so you'll call me tomorrow, work through the
Yeah,
details.
and then, just so we're on the same page, and we'll work out a date, and maybe, Rick, we can figure out, because again, if we want to have a special meeting and just get together and get it done, we can do that, or our next meeting officially is the 21st.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Never a dull moment. Next public hearing and scheduled appointments is Sue Clark and the Senior Tax Relief Committee. If you and your committee want to come on up. Do you folks want to come up too, or?
Come on up.
Ah, you guys did all the work too.
Seats.
Yep.
So I don't know if you want to introduce everyone. I think everybody knows all these
Everybody
folks.
knows
but-
everybody?
Everyone?
This is part of our committee. This is Donna Harrigan, Oregon, and Tom Russ, Sue Clark, Zach Taylor, and Maria Romagnoli. So I don't know how much you know about our senior tax relief program, so I'd like to just give you a little bit of
I'd like to do that just
history
for the
on it.
people watching. You gave us a lot of
Sure.
great information,
did,
but
yeah.
Right,
just for the public.
So this program has been going on for a very long time now, much longer than I've been the director of the senior center. And what it does is it allows some of the seniors to work, I'd like to use the term volunteer, at different town offices for different town departments. But in fact, they are getting a little compensation from a relief in their property taxes. So the way that's determined is we use the current minimum wage, and we divide that into the tax relief amount to determine how many hours they need to work. So we're here tonight to ask you to amend our program in 3 different ways. Currently, we have openings for 25 participants, and I can tell you that we get more applicants than 25. So I have had to reject some in the past. The way I've been evaluating them is through need. So I look at their incomes and I try to evaluate it that way, and where the neediest people are given the positions first. I'll back up a little bit. Before we do anything, we send out invitations to all the department heads, and we ask them if they would like a senior volunteer in their office. And then we do an application. The seniors fill out an application with their income information, their qualifications. We evaluate everything. There's a lot of guidelines that have to be met, so we make sure all those guidelines are met. And then we provide the department heads with these seniors. So what we're trying to do is increase the number of participants. We have 25 now, and we would like to increase it to 32. We feel that that would give enough, more seniors the opportunity to work towards paying their property taxes. There's another thing we would like to change, and that is to stipulate that the work is to be performed from January to October. And the reason we're doing that is minimum wage typically changes. If it does change, it changes in January. And we want to make sure that we're not splitting hours. Okay, so they might have worked 10 hours in January, and then, or if the minimum wage changed, or if they, let's say they started their hours in November, because our applications are due at the end of October. So if they started working in November, they might have worked at $10 an hour, and now minimum wage is $11 an hour in January. It becomes very complicated to figure out how many hours these folks need to put in to satisfy their credit. So we would like to make a motion that we also change that so the work would occur from January to October. And the third thing we're trying to do is increase the maximum reduction from $750 to $1,000. Currently, we allow $750. So the way it is now, with minimum wage being $11 an hour, I think they're required to work like 69 or is it 69 hours? So by now that it's $11 an hour, and I don't know if it will change, if we increase it to 1,000, they may be working closer to 91 or 92 hours. When I first came on, they were required to work 94 hours, I believe, because minimum wage was much lower. So, you know, it gives department heads an opportunity to utilize the seniors. It allows the seniors to be back in the workforce and contributing, and it gives them a break in their taxes. So it is a really good program. There's a lot of interest in it.
Yeah, what you're saying all makes sense. I just had a question. If we could make that adjustment in their taxes based on the hours they've worked, can we, by motion of this board and a vote of this board, make it contingent upon the highest number within that fiscal year? So in case it changes, that way they could start earlier if they wanted to, and if the department head wanted them to. So
You mean so?
so all we'd have to do, I guess my point is, rather than wait from January to October, simply say that the amount that the hours are based on would be the highest amount of during that fiscal year of minimum wage. So if it changes anytime during that period, we would do the calculations based on that January number, regardless of whether they started in November or December.
So you would give them.
Do you see any challenge with that?
No, on this particular year, we did have that, pretty much that situation.
Yeah.
It was 10, it changed to 11.
So that way, you don't have to calculate two separate numbers based on this amount of hours at this rate and this amount of hours at that rate.
Yeah.
So, you know, with that said, Mr. Chairman, I'd be inclined to, one, make a motion to increase the maximum to $1,000 as recommended by this board. The second thing I'd recommend is that if minimum wage changes any time during that fiscal year, that we use the higher amount to calculate the numbers. So that way it takes care of, you don't have to restrict it, you can let department heads and volunteers work that out when they'd like to start. So, just for example, if somebody is taking vacation in the summertime and wants to work from October to the following July, you're still good. You don't have to calculate two different numbers, okay? The last thing I have for you is, based on, increasing the number makes a lot of sense, especially since you're telling the board that you've had to turn some. My only concern is 32 enough?
Exactly.
Should it be a higher number, and I don't know what your rate of turnback is versus how many you've been able to accept. If on average you receive 50 applicants, just for a number, at its peak maybe, if this board made a recommendation to go to 45, I'm looking for guidance from you folks based on the number of people.
We did discuss that.
Yeah?
And we did turn to Sue to look at like historical trends.
Okay.
And that's kind of where that number came from, but there
Okay.
was also a concern that we had shared, and the discussion kind of led that we would go with baby steps at this time and go to where she's experienced the highest number, and then if it became an issue, move forward.
Okay.
You know, that's kind of where we left it.
So,
Point well taken.
I think historically, the 32 would satisfy it.
Okay.
If for some reason we.
I just didn't want you to be shy about it if
No,
there was an opportunity to do
I'll take
more.
as many as you want to give us. I mean.
No, but
Concern with the number?
Not
Like if it-
necessarily. It is
if it-
based on the overlay account,
Right.
and we do have sufficient overlay, so
Okay.
it's
It
not
would-
necessarily a
okay.
concern, though.
Okay.
So let's get more.
All right, so let me do this, Mr. Chairman. And not to try to cut off discussion, because I think it'll still allow further discussion on the topic and different people to weigh in and ask questions. But I'm happy making a motion that we increase the maximum number to 40.
Excellent.
I'm also
Do
happy.
you want to do these as individual motions, or?
No, I
You're
put them
doing as
all
a group?
together
Okay.
to make the changes to listen to the board and go to a maximum of $1,000 tax relief or abatement or whatever. What is it? What is that? Relief.
There you go, relief. yeah.
Okay. It is a needs-based program, so it's not easy to qualify, but at the same time, those folks that have the need should have the opportunity, and they're welcome to work with our departments to do that. And then that was and that we further specify that the amount of relief would be based on the highest number determined by the federal government for. Or is it state?
It is
state.
state.
State government for minimum wage. That way you don't have to calculate two numbers. Does that work for you?
Works for me.
Yes.
Okay.
Jean, do you have that motion?
Just the part about the minimum wage, I got lost on that.
I can help you with that.
Okay.
The highest
we're
amount
all
of the
set.
Okay.
state
Within the fiscal
minimum
year,
wage.
state
Okay.
minimum wage.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, if I can, first for discussion, to Sue's point, I think, which is very important, is you talk about the seniors coming back into the workforce. I look at it very differently. I not only look at it them coming back in the workforce, I look at what they have to offer and the years of experience. And I sit here tonight and I see two families in front of us that serve on a different level, but the Treadles and the Swimers, I apologize if I mispronounced your last name, but you're retired and you give back to this community every single day. And I think that's the important thing of a project, or a program like this, is it allows seniors to come back and give to sometimes younger people like us, life's advice. Life's advice. So, you're in there too, Bill. So with that, I'll second that motion.
I'll also vote in favor and make that unanimous, and just want to thank you, Sue, and your committee. You have a good group here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for all your work.
Appreciate your generosity tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next agenda item is with our town treasurer, Chris Pilla, regarding public auctions. Zach gets to stay.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm here in front of your board tonight to talk about tax title and foreclosures. I wrote a memo to you guys on August 3rd, kind of summarizing a brief overview of the process of tax title and then into foreclosures. This process is mandated heavily by Mass General Law, so there's not a lot of wiggle room for me to do much. I do have handouts for you, which lays out the process in very descriptive form, so I'll give you guys that right now.
Great.
You can read it or keep it for your own.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris. I like your bullets on the memo you provided. He said, I like the bullets that you provided.
A little less reading.
It's just very concise and clear.
Yeah.
So when a taxpayer goes into tax title, they're obviously delinquent on their taxes, whether it's real estate, personal property. They usually are 2 years behind. So from that moment to that moment of when we can foreclose on the owner's rights of the property, that process can take well over 2 years.
So we're talking 4 years total. You don't start until after 2.
Correct.
And it takes
Yes.
about 2 years?
Yeah.
So somebody would not be paying for 4. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to make sure I added those two.
It could be up to 4 years. It's, you know.
Yeah, it can
give
be
or take.
variable.
There's a lot of other factors that play into that. If the title has issues, whether it's in an estate or it has heirs, that also plays into the time frame because we have to have all that straightened out before we can proceed.
Excuse me.
So once taxpayer becomes delinquent with the tax collector, she waits for the year to come up, and then she turns them over to myself or the treasurer of the town. At that point, she also records it with the Registry of Deeds and places the property in what we call tax title. Once the tax title, well, the properties come over to me in tax title, interest on that property goes up 16% a day. So you can imagine that amount of taxes and interest adds up pretty quickly. The treasurer then must wait a minimum of 6 months before we can start the foreclosure process. This allows for the taxpayer to come in and settle the lien with the town. After that 6 months has passed, the treasurer, along with legal counsel, can file a petition in land court to foreclose on the owner's rights to redeem the property. That process is where the most waiting comes into play because you're dealing with the courts, and the courts will do their due diligence to make sure everything is fair for both sides. The court will then make a ruling or a decree. Once that decree is ruled, the taxpayer still has a 1-year redemption period where they can petition the land court to pay off the full amount, any interest and legal fees that are incurred. So what I'm proposing at that point, when we do get a decree back, I will inform your board that we have a judgment from the court on a property, so your board is aware. And then we just have to wait the year. Whether they come forward and pay, great, we get the money, they get their title back. If they don't, the next step happens. The next step would be that we legally become the owner of the property, and at that point, I will then notify your board again to see what you would like to do with the property. There's basically 2 options. The town can auction off the property. Usually, if there's a significant value of the property or it's generating interest from residents, it'd be worth us to auction the property off. Or we could hold it as our own, and it just sits in our fixed asset account until interest is generated. In the past, the properties that we have foreclosed on have mostly been vacant or abandoned. They haven't been valued ponds, so we really haven't done much with, or they're not large enough for a building to be built or a house to be built. Most recently, we had 2 unique cases where we foreclosed on properties and the redemption period has expired, that there have been occupants living in them. When an occupant or a taxpayer is still living in the property, it raises a couple of risks for the town. One with our insurance. We're not landlords, so we can't technically rent out a property, so our insurance won't cover it if something was to happen. And the second is, being a landlord, we have to maintain the property, so it will cost us additional money to maintain the property, pay the utilities, cut the grass, and so on. The 2 properties that are currently in this situation are parcel number 351652, which is 23 Princeton Drive, and 27-0-11, which is 49 Dilla Street. I'll start with 23 Princeton Drive, so parcel 351652. On June 5th, I had brought a motion up to auction off this property, and through further discussion, your board had voted to vacate the foreclosure. Since that time, I've been in contact with the parties' attorneys from Greenwald and Greenwald, and they have informed me that they are trying to work out an issue with Bank of America to pay off a old mortgage that will become effective again if the title was turned back over to them. So what happened was, when we foreclosed on it, we're the first party over everybody else other than the state or the federal government. So any other creditor would get wiped away. However, if we turn back the title, they just pay us. That party would then have to take back that mortgage, and it doesn't stop Bank of America from foreclosing on the house right after we give the title back. So Greenwald and Greenwald is trying to negotiate with Bank of America, and thus it's delaying payment to the town. So we haven't really done anything with that through land court. The second parcel is parcel 27-11, 49 Dilla Street. That was placed into tax title back in December of 2005. A judgment was issued by the land court on September 29, 2015. Since that date, the 1-year redemption period has passed. To this date, the taxes owed are $85,151. Seeing that the petition period has passed, the town has the following options. We can evict the occupant and auction off the property. We can evict the occupant and hold the property as a fixed asset. Or, as in the former parcel I talked about, we could vacate the foreclosure through land court and allow the taxpayer to pay off any outstanding taxes, interest, charges, and legal fees. So I know that I kind of gave you a brief overview of how the tax title and foreclosure process works. I passed out a detailed process from which my association, the Mass Collectors and Treasurers Association, follows, as well as Mass General Law states. So just at this time, I would ask you to give further guidance of what you would like me to do or how to handle property 27-0-11.
Chris, first let me tell you that you may have given a brief but detailed overview verbally, but your memo, as was stated earlier, was very precise and very informative. So I certainly understand the process more because I know, I think it came up when we were discussing the last auction that we were wondering why this was taking 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. People are living in a home, not paying their taxes, and why it was taking so long. I think, at least for myself, we were wondering, okay, what aren't we doing in this building to let that much time go by? Because I think a lot of folks watching and everything would have the same questions of why are some people, I guess, able to do that. Yep. But it's more the bureaucracy of the courts and the way the laws are written that obviously we're all subjected to. Well, I'll open it up. Are there any questions or comments? Bill?
Yeah, I have a few questions, but first of all, I want to comment back. So we're clearly absent a process today. You're actually starting a process and meeting your financial obligations, your oversight responsibilities, and I appreciate that. Yeah, some of this is town hall bureaucracy or some break in the system that doesn't get the information to this board. I think you know that in June, the property that was looked at from the building inspector standpoint had not been visited, and once it was visited, they learned that although the town had taken ownership of that property some, how many years, 8 years, 10 years before?
No, just 2 years.
Oh, it was 2 years. Okay, that we had not gone out to inspect it or identify that there were occupants in it. So, you know, I think our obligation is to the taxpayers, the ones that, you know, besides meeting the requirements of Massachusetts state law and our fiduciary responsibilities as treasurer, financial director, and board members of the Board of Selectmen, we have obligations to those people who scratch and claw to make their taxes, pay their taxes, and there's been, I think, people treated reasonably, fairly, humanely, compassionately, but there is a time where that has to end and we have to do something about the property. But let me just ask you, I want to go back to the property on Princeton Drive. So I have to look for guidance from you, because I'm not dealing in the day-to-day. I've not had conversations with any attorney on the property. And so what I need is best judgment. And best judgment to tell us, are people acting in good faith? Is there a time period where we should set that if this matter isn't closed, resolved within a period of time, that we have to go further in the process? So that's a question, because if somebody's not making payments and is making no effort to make the taxpayers whole, because this is taxpayer money we're talking about, right? Not yours or mine or the board's. If there's good faith effort in that happening, and they've run into title issue, or if they've run into Bank of America issue, because we know when bank owns property or has a mortgage, they sometimes react slowly. I have no problem with extending that period as long as parties are acting in good faith. So I'll ask you, is there a time frame that you would recommend? And I want to take each one individually, because we can't make a blanket policy, but as it relates to 23 Princeton Drive, is it your judgment that people are acting in good faith? And is it your judgment that some time ought to be offered to them to make the taxpayers whole?
So Chris has been handling
Yeah.
that a lot more than I. He's been having the conversations, but he fills me in and everything. And to answer the first question, yes, I believe people are acting in good faith,
Okay.
but I do think they're presented with some hurdles right now that they're trying to jump. And this is a first for us, so
Yeah.
I agree with you that yes, we shouldn't just be stagnant on it. We should probably have some updates and really follow it closely. But to throw a date out, I really don't know how long this will take before they actually get solutions from Bank of America and whatnot. But I think that, asking me personally, I think that we should come back in a month and just give an update and then take it from there. But I really don't know what kind of time frame. Chris, you can jump in at that point if you want, or Rick as well.
Yeah, I mean, if
You've
I
had
may,
experience
if I may
with-
jump in, at some point, one of two things is going to happen. They're going to work something out with Bank of America, or
People are
the
gonna walk away.
alternative, Bank of America is going to stay hardline stance, and they're not going to work it out. I think I wouldn't put an outside date on it. However, I think checking in periodically with the attorney, and I think they'll check in with you. But at some point, there may have to be a you coming back to this board and this board making a very difficult decision in that we are not going to give them any more time.
Yeah,
Because this
yeah.
could drag out,
That's
my
what I mean.
experience
Could
with.
another, I mean, we don't want to see in, months and months and years go by
Correct.
again.
How long has it, and just so I'm clear, how long has it been since the town has received tax payments from the 23 Princeton Drive?
2005.
So that's 2005.
They
That's
were
12
put-
years.
Yes, they were put into tax title in 2006.
Okay.
And then it's gone on since. There was issues in the foreclosure process, so it took 3 or 4 times before we got a judgment on that, because there was an FDIC lien out there. And when federal government has a lien on there, they trump everybody, and for them to discharge that lien took some time.
Okay.
I agree with Zach and Rick. I wouldn't put a date on that. I don't want to hold anybody
Okay.
to that. I
You
just
believe they're working in good faith and are
They
giving
are,
us that guidance?
Just from personal
Let's try
experience.
to clear this up.
In other
Okay.
companies working with Bank of America, they don't tend to respond to things very much
Then let me,
quickly, so.
let me move to the 49 Dilla Street. When was the last time we received a tax payment from that individual?
Same time.
It has to be before 2005, because that's when we placed them in tax title. So they must have been in arrears prior to '05.
They were also, well, they were placed in tax title in 2006. They went in for their December or third quarter taxes in
I gotcha,
2005.
gotcha, okay. So the last payment was prior to December 2005? Okay, so still 12 years.
Yep.
All right. Has anybody made any overtures to either of you, town council or town administrator, about clearing up the matter? Look,
I mean, I know the
I'm trying to see if
Former
it's unique to the first
former
one.
owner has been notified. I'm not sure if he has vacated. I would recommend we make that determination first. If he has, then
Okay,
this board could proceed. I would recommend just proceed in normal course and tell Chris to take the next step.
so the only option left in that case is to auction the property.
Correct.
I would have, yeah, well, we have to make sure that there's no one there first.
Yeah, yeah.
because you don't want to.
Yeah, so what my recommendation is, Mr. Chairman, is that we get the building inspector into the property that the taxpayers own. We learn and identify the state of that residence and proceed with auction. That would be my recommendation.
If I may, I've got a couple of, and I don't mean to put you on the spot,
go ahead.
Chris, but I think there's 2 different issues going on here, only because I personally have one next to me. So how many properties presently is the town in action of foreclosure on?
Off the top of my head,
Wouldn't know that.
I don't know. It's not much. There's probably about maybe 6 that are in the, we filed a petition with Land Court. We just had one come back that we were gonna have a judgment due on July 13th, and on July 11th, they filed for bankruptcy. So that means nothing
over.
happens to us. We start over, right? They can make payments to it. If they ever come out of bankruptcy, then those liens come back on. But those problems do occur.
So let me
So-
change the question, and again, if you don't have the answer tonight, you can get it to me, when you have it, is how many properties are you currently working on in the treasurer's office that are tax delinquent?
So in tax title, there's quite a few properties. However, just because they're in tax title doesn't mean the taxpayer isn't coming in weekly, bi-weekly, monthly to make some sort of payment. If they are coming in to make some sort of payment, usually that's showing a good faith effort. They're trying to get out of it. It's very tough to get out of it at 16% a day. That's a lot of interest. But if they're showing that good faith, we kind of work with them. We can't legally enter into a payment agreement per the town bylaws, but we can't stop them from coming in any given day and making a payment. It's the properties that don't come in and make a payment that, you know, we flag and say, okay, you know, they haven't made a payment in a year or two. They're notified. They're notified multiple times by demands from the tax collectors, by demands from the deputy collectors. If they're going into foreclosures, they're notified certified mail by land court, by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So if you're in tax title, you know you're in tax title. It's not like, oh, something just gonna come out of the blue. You're notified quite often.
What is the message that we send to the, I was in Town Hall July 31st and August 1st. What is the message that we send to the good people that come into Town Hall ahead of time and Town Hall on the day of and pay their taxes in good faith? So we mentioned, and again, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but there's got to be a message that we send from this board that that's unacceptable.
It is unacceptable. I can't really answer that. I mean, I don't think we want to just start throwing people out of their homes. You know, I don't know everybody's financial situation. So if they're coming in and they're trying to work it off, you know, that's a good faith. There are people that just don't care. Yes, I agree with that. And that message is clear. We'll take the next steps to go after them and get them. But tax title has been around for.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
yeah. So to Chris's point, it goes into tax title first. We do everything we can. All we want is the money. You know, again, we're not trying to do anything further, but everyone owes, they should pay. So we're just trying to make attempts to collect, get whole, and he does. I mean, a big chunk of change every year, and that's kind of what contributes to free cash, is that's one of those items that does not get budgeted for in the tax recap, you know? So he does do a very good job. We collect a lot. For the most part, when they enter those situations, they do make good faith efforts, and a lot of times above and beyond, and end up clearing it. That goes with interest, with penalty, and all that. But there are situations where it just doesn't get there, and we have 2 of them right now, and it's not like this all the time, but I agree. I mean, it's unfair to everybody else, and even still at this point, we just want to be made whole. But if it's continuously looking like that's not going to happen, then I do think the next step needs to be taken. And further, we're not looking to foreclose because now we're not receiving tax revenue. You know, so it really is like a last resort. That push came to shove, we ended up here.
So, and the other question I have, and again, you can get back to me if you don't have the, forget about property that has homes on it. Only because I have one right next to me. I have a 5,000 square foot lot right next to my home that the last time I checked hasn't had taxes paid on it since 1937. How many of those are in the town of Milford? And again, you can get back to me.
I would have to go through the list. I only see the parcel numbers. I don't see.
Okay.
I don't see addresses unless I pull the field cards.
Foreclosures are considered an asset. It's on our books, and the balance is around $1 million. But a lot of them are like heirs of or owners unknown, stuff like that.
I can tell you. Yeah, I won't mention names. I know who the heirs are, and the reason I know that is 25 years ago, I wanted to buy that piece of property, and I hired an attorney, and I was told that I'd be better to wait 21 years, take it by adverse possession. And I was told at that time that there were many properties like that around the town of Milford. So I'm just, and again, not trying to put you on the spot, but if we're going to talk about it, let's talk about how many of them are there.
We have quite a few that we've already foreclosed that the town owns. They're just not, unless someone, and for instance, in your case, has the property next to it and wants to buy it or take it over, it's worth it for them. But for like a builder to come in, it's not going to meet any other zoning laws. So a lot of these smaller.
They're landlocked.
Landlocked, yes.
Odd-shaped, yeah.
Right. I can tell you there's one parcel that's in tax title that we can't foreclose on because can't find the heirs, and then there's title issues. So that all needs to get taken care of before we can even do that. And with all that time comes a cost. And at that point, how much do you want to spend when you might not be guaranteed to recoup all that money, even if you go to auction off the property?
But if we have properties like that, do we go to the neighbors on either side, like, for example, on my side and my neighbor on the other side, and say, would you like to split it? No. When do you want to buy it?
You need clear title, though.
I can't do that.
Okay.
Yeah, so that would be more of an attorney or,
Yeah, it would be.
yeah.
Okay. Good, Mr. Chairman.
Well, apparently, it'll outlive all of us, you might as well use it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you know, one thing, Mike asked for some things, why don't we get that list? It's helping us to get a better understanding. You know, we have two unique situations in front of us. I think you have the guidance you need. That was my recommendation. I can make it in the form of a motion. But the other thing is I'd be interested to know, and I know it varies by situation, but what I'd like is some guidance to understand how you dollarize the tax title process. So what I want is make intelligent decisions, right? The taxpayer's doesn't want us to go after that pie-shaped wedge that we haven't collected taxes on for 35 years, not the one Mike was talking about, or 80 years. And if I know to put that to auction, I might get $5,000, but it's going to cost me $40,000 to get a clear title. So if you could, give us some guidance so we can make some informed decisions on approximate. You can do some averaging, you can make some assumptions, whatever you think is best. But I think that would help us, because there are some, absolutely, it doesn't make sense dollar-wise to go chase.
Correct.
And we ought to identify those.
Yep.
We ought to put those on the list and say what our rationale was for not chasing those, and the others we ought to pursue if they're reasonable.
Makes
Okay.
sense.
I mean, that's fairly easy. I could go through them all.
Okay.
I could get you a list. I can break you out a list.
Yeah.
Very easily.
And go ahead and feel free to make assumptions. I know your assumptions are not always going to be accurate, depending on the case. If we went after something and we find out it was more than it was worth.
So one thing I failed to mention, and then, I'll be all set, is that going into year 3 of treasurer's school to become certified through the state, one of the classes is tax title and foreclosures and auctions. So I will have the opportunity next week to sit with other treasurers around the state and discuss, probably going to bring up these 2 cases and see how they might handle it, or their town might handle it, to get a better feeling of what other towns are doing, how they handle it. There are other options around there. I know towns that are cash flow low, they do sell their tax titles to third-party companies.
Let them chase it.
Yeah, however, that third-party company is not going to be as lenient as we are, and within 6 months, probably going to own that and kicking, the tenants out if they're tenants. So, there is some sort of humane factor in it.
Sure. We need to be compassionate. We want to be humane in the
Yep.
process.
I can definitely get you that list. Mike
All right.
can get you some answers as well.
So, Mr. Chairman, in light of the information provided on the Princeton Drive property and the belief by both the finance director and the treasurer that the parties are working to clear up the title on Princeton Drive, and they're operating in good faith with the community, I would look to get that updated in a month and see where we go. As it relates to the property on Dilla Street, my motion would be to begin the auction process. And also, in both properties, I would go ahead and get an understanding of what the property conditions are and have building inspection look at the properties the town owns to see what their state is. Because that's going to give us future guidance,
Correct.
right? We're going to need to know that anyway.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so that motion was made. Is there a second?
I just have a question, Mr. Chairman. On the Dilla Street property, have we had conversation with that owner?
Yes. I'm sorry to jump in, but yes.
That's okay.
Yes,
Town council has.
yes, correct.
Okay. Okay, and no correspondence
They knew
back?
this process was imminent. Auction.
I'm sorry.
they know the process is imminent to auction.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's
All right.
fair, yep.
I would second that.
Okay. I'll also vote in favor, make that unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, we'll ask for other old business. And then
Okay.
you can bring it up.
Yeah.
Next agenda item is Town Administrator's Report. Rick?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just two items. I just want to update on the LED National Grid program. I've now started to work with National Grid representatives to begin to convert the streetlights as part of the energy efficiency program. As I explained to the board earlier, we will convert all the streetlights to LED streetlights. There'll be no cost. National Grid will continue to maintain, repair, and replace the new LED lights. There is a projected annual savings between $19,000 and $28,000. There's also an energy and efficiency incentive projected between $90,000 and $104,000. I did have a meeting with the Highway Surveyor, Police Chief, Building Commissioner, and Facilities Director to discuss, one, what type of light. There are two alternatives, so we may want to use one type of light throughout town, or we may want to use a certain light in certain areas, such as Main Street, what have you. The second issue, we do have a list that was provided by National Grid of inactive streetlights, so streetlights that are there but not being activated. There are some that both the police chief and the highway surveyor thought might be wise to activate, areas such as where there's been some illegal dumping, for example, or some other types of areas. So we're trying to nail down that list too. So once we do that, I'll be back to talk to the board on both those issues and provide an update. The second thing I would just like to bring to the board's attention tonight is that is probably time to begin the procedure for the town administrator evaluation for the fiscal year 2018. As developed, the procedure last year is that we would jointly develop a list of tasks and objectives for the upcoming fiscal year. The objectives are to be measurable and attainable. I have provided to you a copy of last year's evaluation. Mike, you weren't here last year, so it's more of a guidance for you, but also the actual evaluation form. I guess I would ask two things. One, for the board members to begin thinking about what tasks and objectives they might want to include that we could discuss. And also, does the board have any interest in tweaking the evaluation form? So I just want to bring that to the attention of all three members, and we think we should begin the process. I am going to begin the process with department heads also to get their tasks and objectives. One, to relook at what they did last year. Some of them were tasks that were completed, some were in stages. And then two, to set new tasks, goals, and objectives. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention of the board, that's all. And that's all I have for the administrator's report tonight, Mr. Chairman.
And Rick, will you have any recommendations for us if you are looking to have something
I do,
tweaked or anything?
I have a couple.
Great, as long as it's a
One would
two-way
be LED
conversation.
lighting, which is going to be a long-term project.
Yeah.
The other would be the, probably the ADA transition plan, which we're now ready to go forward with.
Okay.
So those would be two, and
Okay.
I would.
But the process itself, you're still comfortable with?
Yeah, I may have some.
Okay, that's why I wanted to throw it there, just to make sure that.
Maybe tweaking it, not in a great deal, but maybe lessening the burden on the board. It's quite a task, I think, for the chairman last year to coordinate with a number of questions and subjective questions, so maybe we
Okay.
can do some things there. And if the board has any ideas, I'd be all ears.
Okay, that's great.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Yeah, along with that, Rick, can you provide us with the latest running list that you have? That will help remind me for things that might be good objectives in the coming year. Mike, you may not be aware that Rick keeps a running list of things that we're pursuing, but aren't necessarily the highest priority for this meeting or next week's meeting, but may need to be accomplished over a period of time. That's things that the board has brought up in the past. And, I recommend we look at that for two purposes. One, to see if, to what extent it may be helpful to set objectives for the town administrator, and also to relook at them to see which of them we deprioritize because we simply are not going to pursue for one reason or another. Sure. Because that list will just continue to grow. If nothing falls off that list, then it's, you know, that means we're not prioritizing well, in my opinion, so.
Okay, I
that's
can
my
update
thinking.
that list.
All right,
It'll
that'd be
show
great.
completed items also, Mike.
So what's the timeframe that this board would like to get that done? We're late already.
We're a little bit behind, maybe a few weeks.
All right.
Typically, we do this in the end of June, early July.
Okay.
So we're about a month behind.
'Cause I would look to try to wrap it up by mid-September.
Absolutely, I don't think that's a problem. We have
So
meetings.
that list would be key, and then you provided your copy of your evaluation from last year and the form. People have recommendations. I had to do it last year. Maybe that's something that we look to discuss the next meeting, because I just don't want to fall further behind. I don't think it's fair to Rick either, right?
No, it isn't.
But I think it's imperative, the three of us being former school committee members and having evaluated the superintendents, you know, we want to make sure that it's not a tedious task.
Right.
You know, agreed. I think
know,
may have been a little
it'd be very-
overburdensome. this
exactly,
last- That was
overwhelming.
the first time, really, since I've been here anyway.
Yeah.
I know what would have helped me, and I'm going to make this recommendation now. More ratings by number,
Right.
and more very specific examples that give you a rationale for that number. If we can get even bullet points to that, then they're easy to combine, and average scores and that type of thing would be easier. So
And accomplishments.
that's what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
You'd be listing accomplishments in the scoring
Right.
as rationale and backup. Okay.
So why don't we, well, do we want to start that process now, or do we want to have it, have any recommendations brought to the next meeting? We have it as an agenda item, and,
We'll put it on the agenda
go
for
from
next
there.
meeting.
Yeah, let's
and-
do that.
because
Yeah.
once we're
Let's do
set,
that.
I
Let's get the
mean, we
list
did get
and make
everything
the
to, what,
recommendations.
in 4 weeks or
Yeah,
3 weeks, whatever it was. Well, you set a deadline, then I think we were still a couple of weeks later than that, unfortunately.
Yeah, things came up.
Life keeps getting in the way here, but we'll
I'll
come
put it
up
on
with a
the agenda.
Yeah, you
timeline.
get to do it this year.
Okay.
That's right.
I look forward to it.
There you go.
All right. Anything else, Mike?
I'm good, thank you.
All right, I don't have anything either, Rick. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick.
Next, moving on to old business, we have the highway surveyor regarding the Main Street crosswalk. Scott, is that why you're here tonight?
Yeah.
All right.
Quick update. All right, so it's still in the design phase, unfortunately. The CHA, the consultant doing the work, is waiting for electronic plans, basically, of the last Route 16 project. So they don't have to go out there and spend, you know, another $5,000-6,000 of our money to do the survey, and that's kind of what's taking the time. I thought about just painting in a crosswalks. We are painting crosswalks right now, but I still don't think that's the right way to do it. Do it correctly and make it all, you know, ADA compliant and all that, so.
Okay.
I plan on having, hopefully, I'd say beginning of September to mid-September should be complete.
That's not
That's
far
what I'm
away.
shooting for, so as long as I get the plan, we're ready to go. Just a matter of getting someone to do it, no big deal.
When did we hire CHA, do you know?
Yeah, it was right around the first of the year.
Yeah, just for benefit of the, for Mike, if you, I don't know if you recall, but we deem this a safety concern.
Yes.
And if we think, you know, we just, I think, wanted to get an update on where we were on this, because it remains a safety concern, right? It's safety concern. The safety concern didn't go away. It's about our ability to cross Main Street, especially in the area of Johnny Jackson, the banks there, going towards Draper Park. We've lost one resident, very tragically, to that. I don't know that it would have helped, but I just want to be able to look back, and I know everybody does. Want to be able to look back and say, we've done everything reasonably possible to try to understand what might have happened there. We know we lost crosswalks, and there isn't an easy way for people to cross, and they're crossing today. I just want to know, you know, put my head on the pillow at night and know that we've tried to do everything we can. September seems reasonable. Now, let me ask you a question. What happens in September?
Well, what we're gonna do is, if you have noticed the other crosswalks is bump outs. So basically, the pedestrian crossing the street will be visible to the oncoming traffic, especially where we have 2 lanes going westbound, that you kind of need to have that. So that second lane will actually start after the crosswalk, not in the middle of it. It's a tough little area, believe it or not. It's gonna, I don't know if you're familiar, Mike, but it goes from Franklin Street to Draper Park at the east corner of Franklin Street. So,
That's only because I'm coming home at night from Mendon, and what I've seen since I've been up in Mendon, that's a dangerous intersection. And forget about people walking across the street. It's people that are coming up North Bow, so they stop. Now you've got traffic this way here at the light. They're inching out, but they're blind to the car that's here. They can't see traffic coming here. I'm coming eastbound, and I wave them on. One night I saw a car coming, say, heading towards Mendon. This car pulls out, the two of them end up going down by the old movie theater. Thank God there was no accident, but I just saw another one last night. Car creeping out, car coming down this way here. That's a very dangerous intersection. It needs to be looked at.
The second part of that is the last parking space on the eastbound side at South Bow is gonna disappear.
Okay.
We're gonna take that out, because pulling out of South Bow is impossible. You cannot see if there's a truck or a bigger vehicle parked there, forget it.
Right.
So that's part of it too.
So it's South Bow, not North Bow at the
Sorry,
bank?
South Bow, yes, South Bow.
Yeah.
Yes. So at the end, when this is all done, we're gonna lose one parking space, which isn't too bad. But we'll get it done September.
Okay.
Shooting for
Yeah,
it.
any improvement's a plus.
Plus, the other thing, the bridge, just an update on the bridge, in case you guys been talking to anybody. It will be done September 1st and open.
Good.
All right, it's right on schedule. Perfect.
Good.
All right?
Great.
Thank you.
So we
Thanks,
didn't,
Scott.
we didn't shorten the bridge.
No,
I just wanted to check.
no, couldn't stretch that extra foot.
You can tell we have a lot of town meeting members in the audience tonight.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
Take care.
The next two
bridge
items
stretcher.
are the, in memo form from the police chief regarding traffic aids, one on Central Street, one on Highland Street. On Central Street, in the memo from the police chief in response to a request from Mr. Jerry Hyatt, I made observations of Central Street from East Street to Beaver Street. This portion of Central Street is a hilly and winding roadway, excuse me. Within the past several years, MassDOT and the Milford Highway Department installed arrow signs, signs indicating S turns, and advisory speed warning signs displaying 25 miles an hour and 20 miles an hour. These speed signs are advisory and are not enforceable. As a matter of law, because this is a thickly settled area, the speed limit is 30 miles an hour, the full length of Central Street. Given the inclines, S-turns, the fact that this roadway has significantly high level of traffic because it is utilized as a commuter route from one side of town to the other, and the number of motor vehicle accidents, I would recommend that the Board of Selectmen reduce the speed limit on Central Street from East Street to Beaver Street as authorized by Section 193 of Chapter 218 of the Acts of 2016. His recommendations for speed limit signs are: they be placed, 1, at Central Street southbound at East Street for 25 miles an hour. 2, Central Street southbound, replace the yellow 20-mile-an-hour speed warning signs with 25-mile-per-hour signs. Central Street northbound at 404 Central Street, 25 miles per hour. Central Street northbound, replace the yellow 20-mile-an-hour speed warning signs with 25-mile-per-hour signs. And finally, Central Street northbound at East Street, extension 30 miles an hour. Pleasure of the board.
Yeah, I would take the recommendation of the chief of police. That's a tough S-corner. I can't help but note the irony that the state for years prevented us from putting up signs. Those signs were illegal. Now that MassDOT has put up signs that are illegal, and without our vote, we're not able to utilize them and enforce them. So I just find the irony there. They made us take down street signs on Congress Street near the town park. Okay. Yeah, so I'd recommend to make a motion that we, through our authority of the Board of Selectmen per the Section 193, Chapter 218, follow the recommendations that the chief has outlined in his memo regarding the locations on Central Street.
I would second that.
I'll also vote in favor and make that unanimous. The second is Highland Street speed control sign. At the request of the board, I made observations of the S-turn on Highland Street. The statutory speed limit on Highland Street to include the S-turn area is 30 miles an hour. As a result of my observations, I would recommend that the Board of Selectmen reduce the speed limit in the area of the S-turn to 25 miles per hour as authorized by Section 193 of Chapter 218 of the Acts of 2016. I would recommend that the speed limit signs be placed at 99 Highland Street and 25 North Vine Street.
And this was, the the board members wouldn't necessarily have known about this. This is something Rick and I talked about. It came to mind right away, and when I heard he was looking at Central Street S corner, I wanted to look at this S corner too. So I'd make a motion that we also adopt the recommendations of the chief of police as it relates to the S corner on Highland Street.
I would second that.
Okay, I'll also vote in favor, make that unanimous. Bill, any other old business?
Well, I have old business, new business. Each of you in your box would have received a memo from the Milford Police Chief. It relates to a property on Purchase Street. It mentions me by name as having received a complaint. It's dated July 31st, 2017. The complainant notified me that there were loud, out-of-control parties, music blaring, fights, somebody living in the basement, another family member. It goes on to talk about it's going on all through the day or night. There are severe arguments, loud yelling, times of 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock a.m., fighting. And then the chief further writes, a review of the records and calls from the Milford Police Department and Fire Department indicates we responded 47 times to this address on Purchase Street. And in 2017, they've already responded 6 times. So this seems very similar to a property that you had made a notation on and somebody asked you to look into, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
There's also a spreadsheet giving the nature of the calls, disturbances, fights. It just goes on and on. So I'll go back to my original theme. That first of all, I'd like to say that I appreciate the chief of police looking into this property based on the complaint from the neighbor. The second thing I'd like to do is get an understanding from the building department and Department of Health, members of the task force, that ask, would a property like this, with this type of record of calls by public safety officials, rise to the level of task force review? If so, why? And if not, why? What I'm looking to understand is the task force process. Clearly, any reasonable person would look at the list, understand the complaint by the neighbor, and say that's certainly going to disrupt the quality of life for those people that live around them. This board has made it a priority to address quality of life issues. These are the types of issues that we ought to be task forced on. We ought to have under a magnifying glass and make sure that they get our full attention and not just responsive calls every time there's a neighbor calling that there's a fight or something needs to be broken up. So we need a task force process where we understand this collaboration to the extent that it wouldn't take necessarily a neighbor calling me to tell me, frankly, what the town already knows. Right?
Well said.
So if we can get that, that would be helpful, and to see how they could better collaborate if there isn't, the only thing we have to understand is we have these examples that people give us, then we have the reports that come out after, and we know they've been a problem for a long, long time.
I have spoken with the chief. He is putting together a process that's not only going to involve the 2 boards you just mentioned, but others as well.
Yeah.
So other department heads are being notified, and we will get something back to the board.
Yeah, and by the way, this house is also a Section 8 house. It's under the review of the Department of Housing Department. So, Housing Authority, I should say. So, not only do the neighbors have to put up with that, but they're also helping subsidize the behavior, so. Okay. Yeah, if I get the process was and is
Yes, there is, we're working.
Whatever it is today, and what it's
And-
going to be, if there are
And then
recommendations,
there
that
could
would be
further
helpful.
discussion.
Okay,
of the board,
thank
yes.
you.
And Rick, I know the chief mentions that, that this has been brought up to the attention of Pat Morrell over at the Milford Housing Authority. Having served with her for quite a long time, I know she takes a pretty hard stance on things like this. Can we also just forward a copy of this letter to her so she knows that we spoke about it here at the meeting?
Yeah, she's well aware, and she has been weighing in, and I believe she is looking into the issue of.
Okay, yeah, she handles these things pretty seriously. I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that she knows it was a topic of
She's
conversation.
been,
for us.
she's in the loop, absolutely, she is already, yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right, great.
Yeah.
Prior to me going to Mike for old business, we skipped over, I skipped over, Rick, looking to you for the amendment, the zoning bylaw, the retail marijuana.
Yeah, I put in your packet, obviously, a memo from town council, his conversation with the counsel for the Secretary of State Elections Division, and then they're basically, town council's kind of prepared 3 different potential amendments that this board could say they want to move forward with. I think what we would be looking for tonight from the board was hopefully the okay to move forward with one of those so that we can get it to the clerk to begin preparing the revised or the new ballot question.
new ballot, yeah.
I don't know how to say it, but.
I did it.
And also work on language to explain to people that we already sent absentee ballots to, with an explanation process as to why the second one is coming out. And as this board knows, the governor just signed legislation. I don't think we need to go into that again.
Yeah.
But that's where we are. So I think that's hopefully the direction that will come from this board tonight.
Mr. Chairman, to that end, I talked with Jerry about potential language, worked out with him something that I had asked him to look into. And what Jerry was able to do is construct this document, and I want to read from it. It says that, so again, we're forced to look at this as a result of new legislation and the governor's recent signature and approval of that legislation. But to that end, the motion that I'd make is that the referendum be structured such that it says, such that, shall the town of Milford adopt the amendments to the zoning bylaws as set forth below, which amendments would prohibit the operation of all types of recreational marijuana establishments as defined by general law, chapter 94G, section 1, including marijuana cultivation, marijuana testing facilities, marijuana product manufacturing, marijuana retailers, or other types of licensed marijuana-related businesses, the text of which summary appears below. And basically what this does is reaffirms the original vote that the town and the state voted on, giving communities the local control to either opt out or not opt out. And it's the summary, just I want to read a piece of it, because further, no ban or prohibition would be in effect until the town should pass the bylaw in the text at town meeting. But it also does not prohibit in any way medical marijuana facilities. So it makes clear the medical marijuana is not prohibited by this. It also makes clear that should the town vote to do this, it includes retailers, product manufacturing, that type of thing. So I'd make a motion that we adopt this, structured by Jerry, and allows us to meet the requirements of the new legislation.
This is the document you just handed?
Yes,
Yes, okay,
the one I read to you.
okay. I would second that.
Okay. Well, I'll also vote in favor, make that unanimous.
Okay.
All right,
Good, we'll
thank
get
you.
it to them tomorrow.
Thank Jerry for me for, I obviously didn't construct that, it was,
And as far as I understand it, they'll, obviously even the absentee ballots that went out, there'll be new revised ones at some point. Now that we've approved this language, now we'll do that.
Since this became an issue, so yes.
Okay. Right. Mike, any old business?
I actually have two, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
To go back to our Blackstone Valley appointment, I don't know if we formally thanked Addie Moran for his 23 years of service to the, I believe it was 23 years of service to the town of
We
Milford.
did, you weren't here that meeting, and I was at the following one, so you get to
So
thank
I
him.
just publicly from the Board of Selectmen want to go out and say thank you to Artie Moran for his many years of service. He's been a great community member. He's from Milford and been in the Parks Department. He was director of the Youth Center for us for a long time in Blackstone Valley. So I just want to personally say thank you to Artie and his family for their commitment to the town of Milford. My second old business is, and you weren't at this meeting, I found out that the Milford Youth Commission has the ability to have up to 22 members. It currently only has 7. So I would like to make a motion tonight that we appoint Steve Manguso as the 8th member to the Milford Youth Commission. You heard him earlier this evening. You know, again, a Milford, you know, born and brought up in Milford. He was an educator in Milford, longtime coach, just a solid person in the community. And so I would like to make the motion that we reconsider and appoint Steve Manguso as the 8th member of the Milford Youth Commission.
Okay. Is there a second?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
All right. New business. Knights of Columbus is looking to make a toll road and have applied for a permit to obstruct. Oh, go ahead, Bill.
No, I was just going to make a recommendation, motion to approve.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'd second.
I'll make that unanimous. Next, Rick, there is a vacancy on the Board of Library Trustees, and much like this evening, we'll have to have a joint meeting to fill a vacancy.
Yes, I've already reached out to Rory D'Alessandro, who's the chairman, informed him, he has sent a letter to me informing me of the vacancy. The procedure will be the same, maybe I will tweak the notice.
Okay.
To include, maybe a little more detailed information, just maybe include the word resume, letter of interest, cover letter, and resume.
That's great.
So I would just ask the board to schedule the joint meeting for the library trustees and this board on the next selectman meeting, which is Monday, August 21st. We will prepare the necessary notice, and I've again already alerted Rory that members of his committee should be there. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay? And if that was a cue or what?
No, I'm not sure. Steve's shutting us off from debate here.
Yeah. Okay.
No, thank you very much, Rick. And I wish Lisa Bakayaki the best and good fortune. Thank you for her service, that's for sure. Next is an amendment for the entertainment license for Traff Corporation doing business as Banners. They're hoping to change their entertainment license so that they can feature a 5-piece band as opposed to a 3-piece band, which they are authorized to do so now. It's their pleasure of the board. I certainly don't see this as anything controversial.
I move, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I would second.
I'll make that unanimous. Next is the Milford Performing Arts Center needing or requesting a 1-day license. It's entertainment for a psychic on Friday, September 15th, between the hours of 6 p.m. and 11 p.m. It is a nonprofit group. There will be a cash bar. There is a donation required, and it's open to the general public. That's for wine and malt.
I'll move, we approve.
I would second.
I'll make that unanimous. And last is the recommendation of a special town meeting. Rick?
Yes, looking to set the date for the special town meeting, conferred with Finance Director, asking the board to recommend and approve a date of Monday, October 30th, and to open the warrant.
Okay. Pleasure of the board.
I'll move to approve.
I would second.
And I'll make that unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to correspondence. Okay, I think the only piece of correspondence that's obviously very relevant for this evening, we received, I think, either early this evening or late this afternoon, a letter from our building commissioner, John Erickson. The letter reads, "Dear Mr. Kincaid, please accept this letter as a formal notice of my resignation as building commissioner. It is my intent to continue to serve until September 11th, 2017, to allow some time for the town to appoint my successor. I am willing to adjust this timeline if it will benefit the town. It has been a pleasure to work in this community as a building official for the past 13 years. I do look forward to continuing to work in the Department of Inspections as the Deputy Wiring Inspector, as I have since 2003, and to continue to serve the town as an elected official. Sincerely, John W. Erickson, and he submitted this to the town administrator and copied each member of the Board of Selectmen. He'll be here for, it looks about 5 more weeks, and we can obviously thank him for his service of 13 years, and he still is looking to serve as the Deputy Wiring Inspector.
Yeah, I'd move that we accept with regret the resignation of the building commissioner and his effective date, September 11th, 2017. And I'll also send along our best wishes to him in his future.
I would like to just add that this is a real loss to the community. John's been an excellent building commissioner. You know, I thank him for his service, and I wish him the best in the future. But personally, I have to tell you, I feel that's a real loss to the community, and again, I thank him very much, and I'll second that.
All right, thank you, Mike, and I'll vote to make that unanimous. And do either of you gentlemen have any additional correspondence?
No, with that, though, that probably should prompt another piece of discussion, that we probably authorize Rick to formulate a recommendation for the next job description, tweaking where appropriate, anything we've done in the past, looking for best practice from a surrounding community who's done recent hires. Obviously, those things that are compliant with Mass state law and federal laws in our hiring, and look with somebody, get somebody with the right qualifications. With 5 weeks, it allows us to get that process going, and if we didn't do something tonight, we wouldn't have a process until we met again. So
we have the job description. I will get that and get some other information to you. Yes.
And I would look to give Rick some guidance so that he just knows what parameters he's operating in. Let's look to see if we can do it within the 5-week window, so that we don't have a gap in services. I know we have a deputy building inspector, and so we have somebody capable and qualified to do some things and meet a lot of the requirements that we have. But if we can do that in 5 weeks, and I know you've got some things that are going to compete against that. You've got the beacon and ads that you have to do. So use that as a rough guideline.
Yep.
But I don't want to pigeonhole you into it either. If you can't meet it, just let us know.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you.
Or if we can get close. No, that's a great idea. He's giving us the ability of the 5 weeks notice, so
Yeah.
we should take advantage of that.
Right, right.
I think he would stay a little longer if need be, but
Okay.
I will try to work within the 5 weeks.
All right, great.
Yeah, we can talk with them further, I think.
Yeah, at another time.
The 11th was the date that
Right.
we approved. Okay.
Okay, Mike, any additional correspondence? No. Okay, we do have an executive session this evening regarding, meeting with the town council regarding water company negotiations. That'll have to be done by, make a motion, then have a roll call vote.
I'd move that we go into executive session for the specific reason to discuss the water company negotiations and potential acquisition.
I would second that.
I'll make that unanimous. Now, roll call vote to go into executive session.
Aye.
I also vote in favor. Thank you very much, and have a good night.